Okay, so that's y equals mx plus b. That is slope-intercept form. We do need to remember what that's called, but it's very easy to remember what that's called if you just write down what you're using. You are using m, which is your slope, and b, which is your y-intercept. That's why it is called slope-intercept form, because they go in that order. The x and the y are just variables, so they always stay as an x and a y because they change. These are the things that don't change. Okay? So that's slope-intercept form. So if it asks you to write an equation using this stuff, you first need to look at what they've given you. They've given you an intercept and a slope. So because they've given you an intercept and a slope, we're going to use slope-intercept form. Okay? Because all these problems will be mixed together on the test, so you need to be able to know what the problem's asking for and not just know how to do each of the problems. Okay, so find an equation with those two things. So all you're going to do is plug those things into your slope-intercept form. So y equals m. What's my m in number 1? 1/4, because it is the slope. X, and then b. B is your y-intercept. So plus -3 or just minus 3. So there's your answer for the first one. Okay, same thing on the next. It gave you a y-intercept and a slope, so we're just going to plug those in. Y equals 1/2 x plus 7. And again, that is your y-intercept. That means that your x is a 0. Right? We talked about that last class. So your x is 0. Okay, now we're going to recall this. This is what you did a couple times ago before we did intercepts. So to graph a line using y equals mx plus b, m is your 3/5 and b is your 0, -2. So we're going to start at -2, 0, -2, that goes here. And then rise over run, we're going to rise 3 and run 5. There's their second point. So your line is just like this. Okay, same thing on the next one, but the next one's not in y equals mx plus b. So what do we have to do first in order to graph number 2? That one. Parker, what do we do?
Get y by itself.
Good. Okay, get y by itself. So we have to get rid of this 4x. So minus 4x minus 4x. Y equals -4x plus 1. So we can write down our information. Our m is -4, and when we're graphing, we like that to be a fraction, so -4/1. Our b is always 0 and then +1. So my starting point is at 1, and then I'm going to go down 4, always to the right. So down 4 and always to the right 1. So again, that negative made it go down. Okay, nothing makes it go to the left. We go up or down, and then always to the right. The only time we would go to the left is if we were doing the opposite of both. So if I was going up and left, that's the same as going down and right. Okay, so here's my second line. Okay, last line. It is already in y equals mx plus b form. So our m is -1/2, and that's already a fraction, which is nice. And then 0, 4. So our starting point is at 4. And then we're going to go down 1 and right 2. I can't remember. We might have graphed these exact same lines on our other one. Because we have a slide that looks just like that. Okay, so again, that's a reminder of how to use y equals mx plus b. Because we have skipped a day of using that because of intercepts. So it's still very important. That's going to be used a lot, so we need to know that. But that's when we're given a slope and an intercept. If we're given a point and a slope, then we use this. This is called point-slope form. This is something that I will give you, but you should probably be using it enough where it's in your head somewhere. Okay? So that is y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. Let me show you where that formula comes from. It comes from one that you already know. What does that kind of resemble? Anybody know? Slope, the slope one. Distance a little bit. Distance a little bit. I can see how it looks kind of like it. But slope, m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, if we take those 2's off there, because our equation has to have some x's at the end and some y's, we take the 2's off, and then we get rid of our fraction. We multiply both sides by the denominator. That's where we get this. So if I multiply both sides by this, it would go over here, and over here it would cancel, and it would look just like that. Okay? So same formula you already know. Even if you don't have it memorized, you have it memorized, because you have that slope memorized. Okay? I will give you this one. I probably will not give you this one. But you can derive each of them from each other. Okay? Okay, so if we are given a point and a slope, we need to use that point-slope form. Just like on number 1 here. We are given a slope and any point will do. Okay, so if I'm given that point, I'm first going to write down my form. So y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. Okay, you plug into the 1's. Alright, so you do not plug into this y and this x. So you plug into the 1's and you plug in to the m. So first let's label that. So that is x1 and y1. And above the negative 2, let's put m down for our slope. And plug those in. So y minus y1 is 5 equals negative 2 x minus our x1, which is negative 1. And when I plugged that in, I put it in parentheses so that later we can see that those negatives will cancel out and make that a plus 1. Okay, so y minus 5 equals negative 2x plus 1. Okay, so that is our point-slope form. It asks us to use point-slope form to turn it into slope-intercept form. What's the difference between this and slope-intercept form? How do you always find slope-intercept form? What do you solve for? What do you get by itself? Y. So we need to get y by itself. Okay? So what we would need to do is get rid of this minus 5. But before we do that, let's distribute so we have that something to combine that minus 5 with. So if I distribute the negative 2, that is y minus 5 equals negative 2x minus 2. Now I can add that 5 to both sides. So that cancels out, and y equals negative 2x plus 3. There is my slope-intercept form. So there's my first answer. Okay, the other way that it could ask you to write it is standard form. We've got standard form here. What are the rules about standard form? We talked about it last class, I think. Anybody remember? Bobby?
A can't have an exponent?
Well, any can't have an exponent, but A can't have anything weird, like a negative or a fraction. Okay? But no exponents at all. And then A has to be positive and a whole number. Okay? Everything else is fine as long as you have your letters on the left side. Okay? Letters on the left side. So, Right here, we've got something wrong. What we've got wrong is our letters are on the right. There's that x on the right. So we need to add 2x to both sides. And I have 2x plus y equals 3. And there is my ax plus by equals c. So that's point slope form. You got your hand up?
Yeah, but it's not.
Okay.
I keep getting asked to join Navy 1, and I checked, and I'm always.
That is weird. I don't know. Okay, any questions about what we did here? First one has no negatives. Okay? So use the first one. Now we've got a y1 or a y, an x1 and a y1. So we can plug those into our point slope form. So y minus y1 is 5 equals 1/5 x minus x1, which is 2. Okay, it wants us to write it in standard form, so we need all of our letters on the left side, and we don't want any fractions in it. Okay, so let's go all the way back to a chapter and a half ago or so. What's the first thing I would have you do? The very first step on this. What would I have you do? Get rid of that fraction. Multiply everything that's not in parentheses by 5. If you multiply everything by 5, that will get rid of that fraction and make this a much, much, much easier problem. So multiply everything by 5, that is 5y minus 25 equals 5 over 5, which is a 1, parentheses, x minus 2. So nothing in that parentheses gets multiplied by the 5. Okay, we can distribute that 1, which will in turn say the exact same thing. So let's write that again, x minus 2. And then standard form means all the letters on the left side, all the numbers on the right. So we have to subtract x from both sides. And then we're also going to move that 25 in just a second. So negative x plus 5y minus 25 equals a negative 2. We still need to move that 25 over, so add 25. So that cancels out, gives you negative x plus 5y equals 23. If I remember correctly, this is where my math lab will differ from me a little bit. It might say that that is a correct answer. Why would I think this is not a correct answer? Because there's a negative on the x. And so I teach 2 classes, and I teach 2 classes with this. One of them it accepts the negative at the beginning, and one of them it does not. And I don't know why that is. One book disagrees with the other. So from what I remember, this might be a multiple choice problem. And so if this is one of your multiple choices, you can count it right and click it. Okay? But I would say, how do we get rid of that negative? How do we get rid of the negative on the x? You could divide everything by -1. You could multiply everything by -1. You could just change every sign. All of those would work. So the answer that I would prefer, but again, if it's multiple choice, that's the correct answer, would be x minus 5y equals negative 23. So all I did is just change every symbol, and that is allowed. Okay? So this became a positive, this became a negative, this became a negative. Okay, I want you to do number 2. Get that all the way to standard form. So letters on the left side of that. All right, so if you look at the board, I've got the answer up here. There are a lot of people that didn't do the steps I did on the last problem, which was weird to me since I just showed you how to do it and then you tried your own way. And didn't get to the right answer. So follow these steps. If ever we have 2 points, use those 2 points. Get some more information. Once we have this more information, we have a slope and a point. So I chose this one this time because there's no negatives. Plugged it in. Okay, you want to plug it into that form. I gave you that form. Plug it in. I multiplied everything by 4 to get rid of this fraction here. So 4y, negative 4. If I multiplied that by 4, that's negative 20 divided by 4, which is a negative 5. And then nothing in parentheses gets multiplied. Distributed. Then I did this all in one step. I moved my x's and my numbers. Okay, so I didn't split it up like I did up here. And I get 5x plus 4y equals 19. Did anyone get that answer? You get it? Okay, good. All right, so again, that's just plugging stuff in and then just doing our algebra that we've been practicing for basically the whole year. We've been doing stuff similar to that. Okay? It's just that fraction that tends to get us sometimes. All right, last type of question on this stuff. Find a vertical line through this point. Okay, a vertical line. So this is similar to that axis at type thing. Like we are going through this axis at this point, right? So a vertical line, which axis would a vertical line go through? It would go through the x, right? So this vertical line would go through the x-axis. So our equation is going to be x. So now just tell me, what does x equal? So there's your equation. Okay? Nothing, right? It is a nothing problem. Vertical line. X, comma, y. So you're just telling me what the x is. So it says x equals, and you tell me what the x is. X is negative 1. Okay? But again, all you have to do is think, okay, where does that vertical line go through? If you actually put this onto the graph, it would be pretty obvious which line, but you'd still have to do that same process. So if I put this point on the line, or on the graph, it'd be negative 1, so left 1, fly to 5, and if I put a vertical line through that, okay, if I put a vertical line through that, then you do the same thing. That goes through the x-axis at negative 1. So through the x at negative 1. Yes, ma'am.
Can I borrow a calculator treasure?
All right, so that's how simple that should be as long as you look at that word vertical, okay? And you know what that word means. Again, some of you in my science class didn't know what horizontal was at one point. So let's try to understand those words. Okay? So next one, it says find a parallel line to y equals 5. Okay, so we need to know a couple things on that. We need to know what the word parallel means. What does that mean? What? Same slope. Okay, so they slant the exact same. And then it says y equals 5. Is that a vertical line or a horizontal line? Remember, this is the axis it goes through. So if it goes through the y-axis, if it goes through that axis, it is a horizontal line. Okay? So parallel means they have the same slope. Y equals 5 means it's a horizontal line. So we want it to be a horizontal line. It's going to go through the y-axis. So what does our y equal? So there is your answer. Okay? Again, if you draw that out, it'll make a little more sense. But if you know that parallel to y equals 5 just means also y equals something, then you just look at your ordered pair and know that that's x and y. Okay, so x equals 5 would be something that looks like this. Come on, why won't that straighten out? My whole iPad just froze. That's why that wouldn't do that. There. Maybe this died. Okay, so if we make that a straight line, and then we can put that point onto the graph and make a line just like it. That is another way to do this, and then you can do axis at and figure out which axis at what point. But I think it's easier if you know what parallel means, and you know that y equals 5 is a horizontal line. Okay? Okay, that last page, it's just a bunch of information. Okay? There's a couple things I'm going to have you cross off on that page, so if you end up looking back at it for reference. First, let's not think about this right now. Okay, I think that'll confuse you more than it will help you, so let's leave that off of there. So standard form, that's letters on the left, no exponents, nothing weird for A. Slope-intercept form is where we have a slope and an intercept. Point-slope form is where we have a point and a slope. Okay, and again, I will give you this one. I may give you that one. I will definitely give you that one. Okay, so I'll give you standard and I'll give you point-slope. A horizontal line. Horizontal goes through the y-axis. Vertical line goes through the x-axis. And then parallel and perpendicular. I told you not to think of it this way. I said use this. Opposite reciprocal. Okay, so don't think of it like that last line where it says the product of two non-vertical perpendicular lines is -1. I don't like that. Okay, any questions? Anything you need me to go back to explain it again? If I remember correctly, I like these problems on the test. Find a vertical line through this. Find a parallel line through this. Find a horizontal line through this. I like those because it doesn't require a ton of work on your part comparatively to the other stuff on this section. So if you're having trouble with that, get some clarification on it. Get some practice on it because it's very straightforward and it's on the test because it doesn't take you very long. Okay? All right. Small break. The homework is up for you to look at. And then we'll jump into section 6.